Hello everyone and welcome to Sreshtha Purposefully Passionate About Domestic Abuse Awareness series. The intent of this series is to raise awareness in respect of mental, emotional, economic and other types of abuse besides physical abuse. We all know and recognize what physical abuse is. One act of any injury to your body is physical abuse, but sometimes we are not aware or don't recognize when we are in mentally or psychologically abusive situations. We are not aware of what those red flags are, and because it perpetuates in our society, we let it perpetuate in our home, not realizing that we are in an abusive cycle and we need to make a change to help us live a healthier life. The intent is for you, if you resonate with anything that is shared in this story today, that you make a change either by talking to your partner, by seeking professional help through a therapist, or if you need to exit your relationship, that you exit in the safest way possible. So today I'm really happy to welcome one of my friends who has agreed to share her story. This friend came forward after I started presenting on the series, and this is one thing that I like and I'm glad about this series is that as I present, more persons are coming forward, and it shows how widespread what we go through as women and men are, and the fact that nobody really talks about it. She was really excited to share so that hopefully other persons may not suffer as she did. So I'm introducing Cece. Cece is currently a manager at one of the leading financial institutions internationally, alongside being a mother to 3 beautiful children. Her biggest personal achievement has been recognizing her self-worth and strength and putting it into action. Her ultimate goal is to be able to use her life's journey thus far to inspire women and to recognize their self-worth and own it. Welcome, Cece. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Before we start, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, as I mentioned before, I'm currently a manager at one of the leading financial institutions in the Caribbean and internationally. Right now, my focus has been on just loving and absorbing all the love that I can get from my 3 beautiful kids. I think at this time in my life is when I'm really seeing the gems that I've been entrusted with. So finding that love and centering myself with them, as well as self-loving me and my self-care journey, that has been my focus for, I would say, the last year. And I think I still have a long way to go on this journey.
Yes, all of us have a long way to go on our journey to becoming our true selves. But the most important thing is that we have identified and we have started. So we are all excited to hear about your story and what happened and how you dealt with it, your challenges, what you did. So go ahead and start to share your story.
Okay, well, I would say that my story started when I was just 17 years old, actually. I would have just finished CXE Form 5. And, we think that that is the time of our lives where we could break away. We could, we don't really need to take that much instruction from our parents. So at 17, my mother would have made a decision to migrate to the US, leaving my sister and I basically to take care of ourselves. My sister is 7 years older than me, and she at that time she was in med school, and she had her own life, she had her own boyfriend, and she left me a lot to studying and being with her boyfriend. And I often found myself being home a lot, partying a lot with friends and everything like that. And that's where I met my husband, in the party life at 17 years old. And you can understand that he was older than me. He was 5 years older than me at that time. He had a car. He, at that time, he claimed he had a job. And at that age, I think what attracted me to him was the fact that he was older and he just seemed like he had everything that a 17-year-old will want at that time, not knowing, none the wiser. And very quickly, we started dating, and I will say that probably within 3 to 4 months, I believed that I was in love. And again, because I was home on my own, my sister hardly being around, very soon it moved to the arrangement where he would be spending nights by me and all those things. So that type of environment, that was the perfect environment to push things along very, very quickly. And it was during that time, and I would say that the red flags were there from jump. And the main thing that stands out to me now would be his possessiveness. And strange enough, I mistook that possessiveness for sensitivity. And I would say, you know, I'm so attracted to how sensitive you are, but it wasn't sensitivity. It was when you met me in the party life, so we're going to parties together, and it comes to the point where you can't dance with anyone, you can't talk to your male friends who you were talking to before, and he would become very emotional. He would show a lot of emotion through his possessiveness. And of course, in there, coupled with, I love you and I don't want anyone else, you are mine, I don't want anybody else to think that you're available. And all that emotion inside of there, I found that he was sensitive. And it just attracted me to him more, not realizing at that time that that was a big red flag. And again, because I was pretty much on my own, I didn't really have anyone outside of my friends who were in similar situations to say, that's not right, something is wrong here. By the time we were 1 year together, I was pregnant with my first child, and I had to drop out of school. Now, all this time, he was not, when we met, he claimed he was working, but very soon I realized that he would work some days, he will not go to work some days. He would be getting warning letters about not going to work and so on. And it really showed a pattern of behavior, and I will call it as plain as it is, of laziness. He just did not want to work. He had his parents there who would provide and support him with whatever it is he needed. And I think he felt that that was sufficient for him. I, on the other hand, just before I got pregnant, I had decided to drop out of school, and I got my job in the bank. And imagine getting pregnant just as you enter your first job. So it was a very emotional time for me, because I really thought that I was going to lose my job, knowing I'm pregnant, knowing he's not working. And I felt very much in the unknown, especially at that time with my family pretty much knowing what's going on. They were hesitant to approve the relationship because, of course, you know, everyone on the outside has a clearer vision of what is going on than you who are in the inside. You're absolutely blinded by love. That is not a cliche. It's a fact. It's real. You are blinded by what you believe to be love. The physical abuse did not start immediately. For me, the abuse was more psychological. That possessiveness where I had to cut out my male friends. I could not speak to my male friends anymore. I could not even get a message, look in the direction of males. And I think the first set of, and I could remember it so clearly, the first set of physical abuse came when I met up with a friend of mine, a male friend who I hadn't seen in a very long time from school. And we hugged and, you know, normal, casual conversation. And when I got into that car, it was a totally different person in front of me. And that was when I experienced the first dose of abuse. I did not leave or even think of leaving at that time because of my daughter. who was a baby at the time. And I think, and I don't want to speak for him because I don't want to assess what goes on in their mind, but I think having a child made him feel that he owned me more, because now we have something together. And that coupled, that me interacting with that male person, coupled with my success at work, created a lot of insecurity. I worked in a bank. I work in a bank. I was a frontline CSR. I had a lot of clients, and a lot of people will walk up to me and talk to me because they interacted with me, and he just could not stand that. And it just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And I kept hiding it from my family. We would go to family gatherings and, of course, look like the happiest couple, happiest family with the cutest little baby girl. And little did anybody know what was going on behind closed doors. Very soon, it moved from behind closed doors to public, where we would be driving down the road. And if I am just sitting in the passenger side and looking out, if there's a man in my direct view, I was staring at the man. That pushed me to a point where I started to keep my head down whenever I was out in public, just so that I will not get that hassle or that torment of looking at someone else. Again, you think you're in love. Why? Yeah, a lot of people say, well, why did you stay so long? All these things are happening. He's not working. You are providing. When you get paid, it's basically he getting paid. He's controlling the finances. I think probably the most I would have bought was groceries. And then after that, it was him doing whatever with the funds. And very soon, baby number 2 came. And baby number 2 is here, and you're still not working. I'm still minding the entire family. But you keep telling me how much you love me and you don't want to lose me and how much you're sorry. And it, in my mind, it just sounds like a movie, but any movie that I watch regarding domestic abuse, I realize that it's the same thing. It's real in terms of what happens. He asked me to marry him. And again, it's not that I was pressured by my family into marriage. I would not say that. I kept believing that he would change. And I kept believing that something will be different. My family was encouraging me to really open my eyes and see what's going on and see and understand that it wasn't healthy. Because there were times when there were times when they saw that things were going on. I did not live directly with them, but they knew things were not right. And my sister had a lot of conversations with me, but nevertheless, I felt that I wanted to give marriage a try to see if he will change. And I can tell you, by the second day after we got married, he broke my left hand. And I was in the hospital for a broken hand the day after we got married.
Okay. And that resulted from an altercation around an argument
The result of me breaking my hand was because at that time I was doing my degree, and I had to go to school. So we weren't going on any honeymoon because we have no funds for honeymoon. And I was doing my degree at that time, and I had class. And he felt, because I was close to exams, I couldn't miss. And he felt that I should be home. I should not go anywhere. And at that time, I wasn't able to drive. So I was solely dependent on him driving me to go wherever. And he did not want to take me. We started to argue, and he quickly spun it into the fact that I wanted to go to class to be with another man. And In arguing with him, he held my hand and twisted it and fractured my arm. And so instead of class, I spent the evening in the hospital. And my sister, as I mentioned before, she was a doctor, and she was like, how did this happen? And the words I fell just tumbled out of my mouth. Very normal. Very, very normal. I fell. How did you fall? Well, it was raining and I tried to jump over a puddle and I braced the fall with my hand. Easy, normal, you know? And he's there, the doting husband, like, you know, how could this happen? And when he's the cause of it. So it continued like that for years. And in 2015, this was the climax of everything. Both his parents died within a few months of each other. And that sent him into a downhill spiral emotionally, which he started to take out on me for absolutely the littlest things. Food, the house, money, the car, anything. I was on the opposite end of a punching bag, basically. I was his punching bag. And instead of him, well, in his eyes, nothing was wrong with him. So me telling him, you know, see if you could get help. You are on my insurance plan. You can get therapy. He claims nothing was wrong with him. And it reached to the point where an old friend of mine messaged me on Facebook, a friend I hadn't spoken to in years, maybe over 10 years. And he saw the message on my phone, because that's another thing, going through my phone on a regular basis, going through my messages, my profiles, all those were red flags that didn't take on. And because he saw the message, he completely flipped out and came at me. And my daughter, at that time, stepped in front of me and he pushed her aside. And that, for me, that was it. No, you are not going to be doing this to my daughter as well. And the very next day, I culminated a plan in my head to, I had to talk to my family. I had to get out. There wasn't any if or but. I had to get out. And I asked to go by my sister for lunch. I made up a story saying that there was a family lunch, but by that time he was not welcome by my family at all. So it would have been me and the kids going for the lunch. And he did not want me to go. He refused to let me go, and he pulled all the wires out of the car. By this time I could have drive. I learned to drive. He pulled all the wires out of the car so that I wouldn't be able to leave. And my daughter, again, by this time, she knows what's going on. She understands what's happening. She goes to the car while he walks out the road, I guess, to do whatever. And she goes to the car and she opens the bonnet and she tries to connect everything back where it is. And then she starts the car and it starts. God is so good. It starts. And she's like, Mommy, let's go. And jumped in the car while he was not there, because he left the house. He went down the road and we drove to my sister. And I said, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you. I need to talk to you urgently. And she just heard it in my voice. She saw it on my face. And I told her everything that was happening. And I said, I need your help to leave. I absolutely need your help to leave. And with that was just action mode for her. I think she was just waiting for me to come to that point, to come to that realization. And that's all she needed. And things just started. We came up with a plan where we would go file a protection order, get out of the house. This would have been our marital home that we were living in. Get out of the house. She made rooms in her house available to me and my 3 children. And it was just up to the point of leaving. Now, when you're in a situation like this, you can't just say, I'm leaving you and you're gone. It doesn't happen that way. You can't just pick up your bag, pack your bag, and take your 3 kids and walk out the door. No, it doesn't. And if it does, you are very lucky. So it was a lot of planning and sneaking that I had to take my children, dress them for school. I had to act very normal that morning when everything was going to happen. He stayed at home. Thank God. Usually he would drop me to work so that he can have the car, another form of control that I can't go anywhere but work. And just so happened, and God is so good, that he decided to stay home that day, so I had the car. And I dropped my kids to school. Oh, sorry, I forgot. The very last minute when I was leaving, he decided to come. And I had to figure out, how am I going to do this? Because I wasn't going to take the kids to school. I was just going to take them away and we were going to go wherever we had to go. And because he was coming, I had to change the plan. Kids had to go to school. So change the kids' clothes. Come, we're going to school. I did talk to my daughter and tell her what was going to happen. So she was aware and she knew what was going on. And she was
How old was your daughter?
She would have been, if that was 2015, she would have been 13 at the time.
Oh, okay,
she would have been 13.
So young. And how did you explain to your other children that this is the plan and this is what is going to happen?
So at the time, the other 2, they did not know what was going on. Only my daughter. And only to the point where I said to her, I said, the night before, I said to you, you're going to take this bag and you're going to I told her what to packing it for herself and her brothers. And she hid it under her bed. And so she knew everything that was going on. She didn't know the full plan, but she knew that we were going to leave the next day. And because he was with me, I took we dropped off the kids to school like normal. And I dropped him off at his parents. And I made up a story and I said that we were having a breakfast in work and I wanted my son, the bigger one, to be there, and I could always drop him to school after. So I said, I'll drop you by your parents and by his parents' house, because at that time they were gone, but the house is still there. So I dropped him by his parents' house, and I took my son with me, and my brother-in-law came and met me, and he took me to the police station closest to where I work, and we made a report about what would have happened with the abuse with him and my daughter, that in that altercation where she stepped in. And then we went to family court, where we started the whole proceedings for the protection order. Just thinking back on that day is like I was probably in robot mode. Emotions couldn't play a part in that day, because it would have made me want to stop. So I really had to push all of those emotions aside and just do what I had to do. And by then, when he realized that I didn't bring the car back for him, he's calling my phone and I'm not answering. And we actually, so that he wouldn't turn up by any of my family, my mother, my sister, my brother, we went to a hotel to stay until we had the court date for the protection order. Because when you go for the protection order, you don't actually get it one time. You actually have to go before a magistrate and, I guess, talk out the whole thing before they actually grant you one. So for 5 days, we hid out in a hotel. Now, mind you, that day when we took the protection order out, I had to go to my kids' schools and explain to the principals what was happening and take my children out of school for a week. And my daughter knew what was going on, so she was expecting me to come back for her. So she was just waiting for me to come. But the boys were like, especially my son who was with me, thinking he was going to get breakfast. He's like, Mommy, what's going on? And I said, I'll explain everything to you guys as soon as we stop. And when we did stop, that's when I explained. And it's very difficult to explain to children when they see their parents or when they see nothing wrong with their father. They didn't see anything wrong with them. They just know daddy is daddy. Daddy's fun. They saw, they knew what daddy would do, but it's like they were so accustomed, they probably thought it was normal. And that's bad. That's horrible for your children to think that fighting and arguing is a normal family home. So they did not see anything wrong with what was going on until I called it out to say, this is not how it's supposed to be. This is not right. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. I remember my biggest son, he hated me because we got the protection order eventually, and we came up with this whole access arrangements in terms of how he would see the kids and all those things. And my son couldn't understand. He just felt that he didn't understand why I was trying to keep him away from his father. And he hated being by my sister. It wasn't a good adjustment for him at all. It really wasn't a good adjustment for him. The younger one, as long as mommy is there, he's good. It doesn't matter. My daughter, only in hindsight, I realized that she was just internalizing everything, and she realized that she had a role to play from showing that being that pillar of strength for her siblings. But I think it's only now that I see how hard it was for her to process everything that was going on. But she knew she had an important role to play, and she was determined to not break down, to be strong, to keep her brothers in check, listen to mommy, this is what we have to do. She was determined to play that role and do it well. We separated for about a year. After about a year, during that time, it was just really dropping off the children on every other weekend for them to see the kids or whatever the case may be. He did not physically come at me, but he continuously left me voicemails, text messages, called me derogatory names, threatened me that if he ever saw me in public, what he would do to me. I thought of so many things. I thought of selling my car because he knew the car. I thought at this time I wasn't even home. I was living by my sister because I was afraid to go back to my home. All these were real fears. And as things settled down and we went into normalcy of being separated, I think I started to let my guard down. In my mind, it was easier for me to go back to my old life. Not the abuse, but the routines of my old life. I'm by my sister, living with my sister. I'm doing that. It started to become a little frustrating. At that time, I was doing therapy every month, once a month or every other month. I can't recall, but you can go to therapy. People can talk to you, but you are going to reach a point where you're going to have to be the one to listen to yourself, and you're going to have to do what you have to do. The same way when I told my sister I was ready to leave and she was just waiting for that moment, it was the same thing. You have to be the one. So therapy at that time, it wasn't doing what it was meant to do for me. But nevertheless, after a year of it, we rekindled. We got back together. And I went back into a relationship after promises that I will change, I will get a job, I will help you more, I will, all sorts of things. You name it, I got promised. And I went back into that life. And for the first 4 months, I counted it, 4 months, it was like bliss. It was like, what? The changed person. And after that, my bank card went missing and my entire savings was wiped out of my account. That was the first trigger. That was like, what? And not even so much. When the money went missing, he went missing as well for a day, an entire day, did not come home. And I'm like, what? You have the car, I had to go to work, children had to go to school, all the money in the account gone. What is going on? And from there, it was just money missing, question. And if I question, like, how am I going to get my money back? What is going on? This is what we need for food. It's not to say you're working. How are we going to survive? I'll get it back. I'll get it back. And the more I pressed and the more I asked questions, the more he got aggravated with me. And it just, his family in the end, it was that he was owing someone money and he took my money to pay them back, took everything that we had, every last cent to pay them back. And his family basically paid off the person, the rest of the money he was owing the person. And I was like, so what about me? Am I getting my money back? How am I gonna get my children to school? How am I gonna put food on the table? And nobody cared about me. Nobody. And I kept asking, and that just made things worse. That just made things worse. I got so depressed. I was so disappointed in myself for going back into this. I couldn't believe that I was back to this point. I couldn't believe it. I went into serious depression. I was in auto mode. If he cursed me, I didn't used to respond. If he hit me, I didn't used to respond. Anything he did to me, it did not matter anymore because I just wanted to die. I just wanted it to end. I couldn't go back to my family and ask them for help anymore because the first thing they would have said is, I got you out of this already and you went back. I wanted to die. I would be leaving home in the morning to go to work, and I honestly, I was on autopilot. I felt like I missed that whole year of my life. I didn't know what was happening in that year of my life. And I keep saying God is so good because he is so good. What I started doing was journaling. I started to journal my thoughts, and I started to write my darkest thoughts, what I wanted to do, how I wanted to end it, everything in that journal. And very soon, I didn't even realize it, very soon, those dark thoughts transformed into prayers. That journal right now, I look at that journal and it saved my life. I would start off by saying all the ugly and dark things about myself, and then I would end off by begging and asking God for help. And it just turned into prayers, and more as you turn the pages, it turned into prayers and light and strength. And that's how I got back up and said, I'm going to do this again. I am going to leave you again, and I'm going to leave you for good. Back into planning mode. Because I knew I could have done it. I went back into planning mode. This time it wasn't this easy or wrong because he was more prepared for it because he saw it happen before. So he was more prepared for it. This time my girlfriend was the one who helped me. But I made the decision that I'm going to leave everything. I don't want anything. I left my house. I gave up my house, my furniture, everything. I just left with clothes for the kids' school books and everything. And I decided to rent an apartment. And I left. And he said to me, you're going to come back. And I'm going to find you and I'm going to drag you back. I'll never forget that. I'm going to find you and I'm going to drag you back. And for months, I would take so many different routes to come home just so that he doesn't follow me in case he knew where I was going. Like every day I'll take a different route. Hello, at a point in time, you swear I was living Shogunas. That's to tell you how much different routes I was taking just so that he wouldn't follow me. And just being on my own and being with my kids, that peace of mind Nobody could take that away from me. That right there is my strength. I'm still afraid. I'm still afraid to this day that he could come and he could do something, but just being out of it completely. I didn't take out a restraining order or anything like that. And the reason why I didn't is because he wasn't messaging me. He wasn't provoking me in any way like that. Outside, save and accept the where he said, I'm going to find you and bring you back. He wasn't. He wasn't even reaching out to the kids. So I didn't think that it was necessary to take out a protection order. After a while, I reconnected with a very old friend and they encouraged me. And I think they have been my saving grace these last few months, where they directed me to a divorce attorney, walking me through and holding me with that holding my hand through that whole process of divorce, which, because I wasn't asking for anything and I gave up house and the only thing I took was the car was in my name. Everything else I gave up. I didn't want it. I didn't even want maintenance or anything from you, because you can't, you're not working. And I did what I had to do. I had that court battle, which was very hard, because you go to court and you pour your heart and your soul out into a divorce petition. It's not just about saying, I want a divorce. You have to prove why you want a divorce. And I had to give all the stories and everything that he would have done to me. And I thought I did a pretty good job until my attorney said to me, you need to put more. And I said, more than this? I said, you want me to put more than this? She's like, yeah. I was like, well, how hard is it for a woman to, after putting this, to say that you want more, to prove that I want a divorce? And I did that. I put more. And when I went to court, we appeared virtually because of COVID. And I would say he captured the audience of the court, the attention of the court, sorry. You know, when they say who speaks loudest gets heard, he was shouting and saying that I have been hiding his children from him for however long, and he doesn't get to see his children. And I felt like they just ate up everything he was saying. And at the end of the day, they basically told me that a social worker had to investigate our case. And a social worker was assigned. And I went through the whole gamut, and I was so determined to get to this finish line, because there was no going back. There was no going back. It was just me praying and asking God for the strength, because there are a lot of times that I felt like, what am I doing? I'm spending all this money. I'm going through all of this emotional turmoil again. Is it worth it? And you'll always have that voice in the back of your head that wants to push you to the easiest route, the easiest and the more comfortable route. But think of what I had to think about is what was at the finish line for me. What was at the finish line. And the thing is, it's not, you're going to say that, you probably think that, well, it's a divorce and he's still going to be around, and peace of mind and that self-victory to know that you were able to walk away from that situation. When that judge granted me that divorce, I cannot describe to you the feeling. I cannot describe to you the peace that overcame me. I walked out of the attorney's office and I went into my car. I cried. I laughed. I screamed. Anybody who was passing would want to know what was wrong with this woman. But it was just so much emotion. Freedom. I just felt so good about myself that I was able to make it to the finish line. I was able to walk away from him. And at the end of the day, I walked away with full and sole custody of my children. He does not give me maintenance, and I do not need maintenance, because I would have minded my children. My daughter is going to be 20 this year, And I have reminded my children, all three of them, on my own because she was not working. And even though I would have left my house and everything with it, there's nothing better than peace of mind. Absolutely nothing better than that. Nothing better than coming home to seeing that, my children right now, and because they're bigger compared to the first time we separated, they understand so much better now. So much better. My daughter, I remember when I told them that, the divorce was official. She said to me, "I'm so proud of you, mommy." And that, of course, I cried again. And they say I cry too much, but that's okay. It's because they don't understand the journey. They don't understand that it's 21 years later, I'm free. 21 years later, I'm living my life. I don't, if he wants to come at me after 21 years, bring it. I think I'm ready now. I'm ready. But I want to say to anybody out there, you have no idea what's inside of you. You have no idea the strength that you have inside of you, that God has placed inside of you. You just need to activate it. And listen, you can do it. You may think that you have no one to help you. You just have people just standing up, waiting for you to say the word. And they're ready. They are ready for action. Hey, you could call me. I'm ready for action for you.
Wow. So, Cece, your story is so amazing, and it's so relatable as well, because at 17, that, to me, that is what everybody, I don't want to say everybody, but generally, to have someone a little bit older than you, and he seems to be on his own, independent. We didn't know the full story. And then we grow up with this feeling of fairy tale and meeting this sort of prince, and then you meet this person and he kind of fits you, and you fall in love with the person, and love is blinding. And you get yourself into that relationship, and maybe you didn't have persons around you to guide you, but at the end of the day, at that age, as you said, we think we adults and we grown up and we're making our decisions, and people will tell you stuff, but you really have to be the one to maybe experience it for yourself and decide yes or no. And then when you're enveloped, and then you have a baby who you genuinely and purely love, is 100% love for you, and that having a baby, like at least when I was having my baby, it attracted me to my husband more, even though he probably wasn't given any more than before. But it's just, I don't know if how that love blinds, but the feeling of having a baby with this person, and you hold the baby, and you continued into that relationship, even though he was mentally abusing you. It probably wasn't recognizable at the age that you were, and then wanting to be with this person who you're in love with. We tend to dismiss. He did that, but we dismiss. Even when it gets a little bit worse, and it got really bad for you, we tend to dismiss it. And you went on into marrying this person thinking he would change, and this is something we all do. We think this person is going to change because he tells us he loves us like 2 times, and he treats us bad the rest of the 98%, but we hold on to that 2 times when he really, really loved us. And we're thinking marriage will make it better, because in your head, marriage is 2 persons committed to making this thing work, and we work things through together. And that is what we go into marriage thinking, when another person is thinking, I have this person who can enable me to have the life that I want, and this is working out really good for me, and I don't really need to give anything. And the progress of your abuse as well, from the mental and the psychological, emotional, which is normal again, to physical, as soon as he sort of has you locked into that marital contract where, before long ago, we stick in that contract. We think the divorce is not really an option, and we kind of think that is it. Once you're married, you're locked. And then the abuse progresses. But again, and then you develop your own way of coping. You dismissed it. You kind of get numb to it. And the breaking point, which is what I have seen in the other interviews I have done, is when that person messes with your children. So we as women, we will take as much abuse, we will dismiss it, we will make excuses, we will work around it, we'll be flexible. But when that person threatens the one thing that you love wholly and completely, that is usually the breaking point. And what I have seen from another interview I did, and even in my own life, my breaking point in wanting to move on from my own marriage was the treatment of my daughter. And even going through that, and then after all of that, having to deal with this person constantly threatening you, you have a lot on your plate, and you get to the point where you are so depressed that you don't see value in your life. And thankfully, you were able to work through that, your coping mechanism being your journaling and seeing how your thoughts progressed from those dark kind of depressing thoughts into prayers. And funnily enough, when I did, and you guys would see it maybe in a couple of weeks, when I did the interview on determining your self-worth, the strategist spoke about your power script, which is what I think you were kind of journaling there, what you're telling yourself and changing the way you think about yourself by rewiring your brain. And you did it through journaling. And even when, you left, and we love this person and we believe, even though it takes so much to leave, sometimes we go back. And that's another thing we do as women. We feel sorry, and we so love this person that we believe in whatever they're telling us, and we believe it will change. But the fact is, unless that person is working on themselves, going through some sort of therapeutical journey or doing anything like that, it is not very likely that that person is going to change. And it struck me that you counted the months, because I had another survivor too who counted the days. In her case, I think it was 4 days, 4 or 5 days. In your case, it was months. And you counted the months until this again got to the point. And oh gosh, I am so glad that you are out of that. You have emerged from this really, really dark place into this bright, beautiful, blossoming place where you could feel the strength and you could feel the energy in your voice when you talk about coming out of that and what
Absolutely.
you want for women and your own self-worth, and you're even ready to fight for other persons, which is what we need to do, and to make those connections with persons who could help, who we could help, based on our journey. And just because we are friends, the journey touches me a little bit more because I have a personal relationship with you. But you are really, Cece, beyond a matter of doubt, a testament of strength to do this with 3 young children, even that I cannot even fathom. And I like that you spoke to the fact of your exit. So another thing we talk about as I do this series is your exit plan, because a lot of times when you decide to exit, that is the sort of the point where your life is in the most danger. And you spoke about reaching out for support, which is very, very important when you're trying to exit. And in your case, you had that support ready and willing. And the thing is, sometimes the persons around you see what is happening and they want you to come out. But you as a person have to decide and make that decision, because as much as whoever loves you is telling you, you need to do this and you need to do that, you don't really get to that point until you as yourself could see that you need to do it. And sometimes as a friend, because I have friends who have been in this situation, you have to be there to support as a delicate balance, and yet let the person know that you're here for them without pushing them away so that they don't reach out to you. So I'm glad you had that support and you had your exit plan, and you are here to share your story. So Cece, I wanted to ask you, recently I had a post which said children are not tools to be used to satisfy your insecurities. And that post actually created a lot of conversation, I would say, amongst my friends and then amongst persons who were reaching out to me and telling me how true this is. And you were one of those I know who had reached out to me and said, Shri, this is so true. Would you like to share a little bit of how you experienced that in your relationship?
Sure. So my experience with that was that he would have used my children as pawns to get information on me in terms of my whereabouts, who I was talking to, where we went, if it is a stop to talk to anybody, anything like that. For children, they don't they don't know, obviously, they don't know that there's an underlying reason why he's asking these questions. It's not from a place of, I'm interested in knowing where you were going, but from the place of, I want to know because he's coming back to me to ask me, so who was that you were talking to in the mall? Or who's that person? And I'd be like, what? And he would say, but, and he would call, maybe one of the children said that they saw you talking to. And that, to me, that's why that post stood out to me, because I knew that several times I encountered that. And children will be children, they're innocent. Someone asks them a question, they'll respond. I should not have to put my children in a position where I have to tell them, don't tell your father anything about me, or don't say where we went. That these children should absolutely not be in that position. I'm not saying for your exit, for your safety, you may need to have that conversation with them, but generally, it should not be the norm for children to have to be lying. And he would have used my children to get information on me, my whereabouts, what I was doing, and then use it against me, and sometimes even improvised more or added on, embellished it. Things that they did not even say. Actually, I had a very recent incident with my daughter about that. And as I said, she's an adult now, and he would have lied about something that she said, and she was so upset, and it hurt her so much to say. And she said, you know what, Mommy, I'm so glad you know me, because I would never say that. So it's children can be used as pawn in these situations, and that as well, to me, is a sign of abuse.
Yes, it actually is child abuse, because what you are doing is you are using the child, you are manipulating the child using the relationship and the trust that that child has in you to garner information to then mentally abuse your partner. And it is a clear situation of child abuse, psychological abuse, and emotional abuse. And I wanted to make that point, especially for the listeners and the persons out there who, when you see something that probably doesn't resonate with you, sometimes you get an allergic reaction. But the reality is that there are persons going through this. And even by law, the use of children in the Domestic Violence Act, I mean, I can't quote it perfectly because I'm not a lawyer, but if you read the act, it speaks to using children and manipulating children. So I will ask you if there's anything besides what you shared that you want to share with women now as a testament to working through this and becoming your own you and being a strength for others. Is there anything else you want to share or say?
I just want to remind the women out there who are in similar situations that nothing is impossible. The same way how I thought that I would have to spend the rest of my life in this nightmare. It took me 21 years, but I'm out. And so can you also be out, walking out alive. Because a lot of them don't think they'll make it out alive. You can make it out alive, but you have to make the decision. And you have to think of a plan, just like how I sat and I thought of a plan. And it doesn't take days or months to think of a plan. When your life depends on it, you will see how easily and quickly that plan formulates in your mind. And you just need to make it happen. Making it happen, the hardest part of making it happen is making the decision that you want to leave. That's the hardest part. Once those wheels are set in motion, everything happens. And it will at points in time it will be difficult. You will meet obstacles, but you have to push through if you want that exit to be successful. Push through. It's worth it at the end. Trust me. 21 years free.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Your freedom is definitely worth it. And mental freedom, which is something we don't really understand, that feeling of being free to be just whoever you want to be and live your life, doing the things that you want to do, celebrating you in every possible way. That is really what I want. And that is what you embodied and epitomized. So thank you so much, Cece, for sharing your story with us. It was such a powerful and amazing story, but it is testament that it doesn't matter how long you have been in this situation, It doesn't have to continue. You can make a decision and start your plan to come out of it if that is what is necessary. So for everyone
Thank you so
watching,
much.
oh, you're most welcome. For everyone watching, the domestic violence hotline, if you need to call, is 800-SAVE. If you need to contact a therapist to access coping behaviors through a situation like this, I will post the website at the end of the episode. I encourage each of you to continue to being safe, continue to live in your true self, and continue to strive towards mental freedom. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next week. Bye.